Alright, what is going on, y'all? Soul here, and welcome back to my story mode. So, at this point in time, Generation 9 has been announced about 2 months or so ago now. We have gone over literally everything that could, should, and should not happen going into those games. So, with all of that out of the way, I think it's fair to start at least kind of considering the possibility of 5th gen remakes.
But Soul, we just got 4th gen remakes. There's no way 5th gen remakes will come out that soon.
Hold your horses, you nerd. I'm not talking about a release date or anything like that. At the end of the day, not a single one of us knows what the future is going to bring for this series. I don't work at the Pokemon Company or Game Freak, so I have no idea what kind of things that they have planned for us going ahead. However, I do feel that it's more than fair to be honest about my feelings, and my honest thought is that I have a genuine crippling fear of what's to come for the 5th gen remakes. Now I know, it is incredibly, extremely early to be saying something like this. However, I did the exact same thing with the 4th gen remakes. I had a fear of how they were going to turn out, and they turned out not at all what I expected, and as a matter of fact, worse. On the off chance that anybody's new here, if you want to see my review, it's up on the channel. It's an hour long. Take your time with it. I had a lot to say about those games. But the long and short of it is, I feel like those games were nothing more than a cash grab for the holiday rush of 2021. Kids need Christmas presents, so Pokemon makes sure that it's always available as an optional Christmas present. Always. And that very reason is why I feel that the remakes failed so hard in a lot of our eyes, because they weren't meant to be good, they were just meant to be available. So it's become very clear to me that I could complain about the 4th gen remakes day and night without even a breath in between. However, that's not what we're here to talk about. While I do have my negative thoughts regarding Generation 5's revisit, there's also a possibility that I'm going to be very wrong. I do my best to think as positively as I can about every situation going forward, even if I am eventually gonna end up, really overthinking it and thinking that it's gonna turn out bad, but we try, and that's what's important. So here's my thoughts on things. I have my good news regarding the possibility of these remakes, and my bad news regarding the possibility of these remakes. And because I like to always start positive, we're obviously gonna be talking about the good news first. Now, the first batch of good news is that we only just got these remakes recently. Now, that obviously means that we probably have a lot of time in between now and the next set of remakes. Exactly how many years we have until that point, I really couldn't tell you. However, there's a good chance that we probably won't be seeing those remakes for at least 4 to 5 years. Now, in theory, that may seem kind of obvious. However, this is probably the longest we've gone without a new set of remakes. When it comes to the remakes, at least, we have fallen very far from any sort of actual pattern. So instead of just getting a new generation and then a generational revisit right after like we thought it was going to be, there is now a lot of possibilities in between. First, there's the possibility of in-between games like Pokemon Crystal, Pokemon Emerald, Pokemon Platinum, and so on. Now, it's really hard to consider this a possibility because the last time that we got an in-between game was actually Pokemon Platinum. I guess one could theoretically call Pokemon Legends an in-between game because it's the superior version of the previous two, just like the original Pokemon Platinum, so if you want to consider it that, that's fine by me, whatever, but point is, we haven't had a true traditional one in a very long time now. Pokemon Z was an absolutely golden opportunity, and they completely flubbed it for whatever reason. No idea why. The next possibility of in-betweens is sequels, something that ironically we never considered was a possibility until Generation 5. Up until that point, the series was completely disconnected. You didn't have to play one game to play the other. If you wanted to get into Pokemon, you could just play the latest game. That still applied to the sequels, however, you would have an actual lot more context for the story if you played the games beforehand. So because of this, it is still very possible for us to get sequels to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, or the game that comes in between that and Generation 10, or for Generation 10, who really knows? Another possibility that we never really considered was a reimagining of the games prior. Generation 7 was so weird because Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon were virtually the exact same game with a couple of very slight new elements stapled in there for the sake of calling it a new game and getting it out for the next year. Now granted, because DLC is such a huge thing this day and age, I highly doubt that they're going to be doing anything like that ever again. However, you never know with them. It is a possibility to consider, and possibly fear. And speaking of DLC, the last actual possibility of things that could put us in between now and Generation 5 is a lot of DLC for the upcoming generation and possibly the next couple of games. Ever since moving Pokemon onto somewhat of a home console, they've been able to do DLC related things for the games. One of the best things about Generation 8 was easily the DLC that came about a year after it. Now, before I go any further with this, I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, what the hell are you talking about? What is the point of talking about all of these different possibilities of how they're gonna put games in between and things like that and yada yada yada? Listen, like I said, the farther we are away from them working on the Generation 5 remakes, the better. If we get any of these things for the next couple of generations, whether it be sequels, in-between games, reimaginings, whatever, that's just more time in between. And you know what happens after a certain amount of time with a console? We get a new one. A new, better, stronger console that can handle a lot more things, right? Now, think about the one consistent thing that has always happened with the remakes every time we got them, from Generation 1 to now with Generation 4. I'll be honest, I missed it too, but I didn't notice until I started recording this video that every set of generational revisits has always been on a different console. Gen 1 remakes were on the Game Boy, Gen 2 remakes were on the DS, Gen 3 remakes were on the 3DS, and Gen 4 remakes were on the Switch. And before we continue on here, I don't care about Pokemon Let's Go. If you say anything about that, you're getting flicked in the nose, buddy. So anyhow, as you can see, of all the inconsistencies with the Pokemon series, that is the one very consistent thing that we've always had so far with the remakes. The one thing. Now, granted, there's no guarantee about what the future is going to bring us when it comes to Nintendo and their consoles. We've already had the Switch for about 5 years, but they don't seem to be slowing down with developing games for that anytime soon. However, I don't think that it would be completely ridiculous to believe the possibility of us having a new console by the time that we get to the Generation 5 remakes. To my knowledge, usually getting a new console for developers means that they have a little bit more power to play with. It is very weird to me that Game Freak completely dropped the ball when it came to developing mainline Pokemon games for the Wii U, but they've been developing Pokemon games for the Switch literally since day one. I think that it's more than safe to say that they know how to make Pokemon work on home consoles at this point. And if that's true, then by the time we get around to the Black and White remakes, we may be looking at an entirely different existence. However though, that is just a possibility. Now before I get too in my own head about all of the good possibilities that could come out of this, I should probably flip that pancake over and really pay attention to the burnt side too. There is some bad news that could potentially affect the outcome of the Gen 5 remakes, and I think we should probably talk about that now. For starters, it is no mystery that the Gen 4 remakes sold extremely well. Despite the community ultimately agreeing that these games were probably the worst of any remakes that we've ever gotten in the series, it sold extremely well. Now I'm sure that there's a couple of you that are very confused as to why this is considered bad news. Well, hear me out for a second. Let me hit you with a quick scenario. Imagine you have a lemonade stand, right? And you sell two very different kinds of lemonades. There's the first lemonade that you make utilizing your grandma's recipe. There's a lot of personal lemon squeezing involved, putting in the right amount of sugar. This recipe takes a lot of love and a lot of care, and it takes a lot of time to make. However, you put that out and you want to sell it. And then you realize that you could just be putting in flavor packets into water, and you sell that. You're able to double the product that you're putting out, and it sells just as fast, if not more, than your grandma's recipe lemonade. Be real with yourself. Which product are you making and selling more? The one that you love but takes a lot more time and effort, or the one that is extremely quick and simple and sells just as fast? If you said your grandma's recipe, you're probably trying to be a good person, but you are absolutely lying to yourself, Chief. So take that analogy and apply it to the Pokemon Company. They outsourced one of the mainline games to a third party to develop and then put it out, and it did extremely well. So, logically speaking, there is nothing stopping them from doing something like that again.
No, but that's Ilka's fault. They should have outsourced another third-party company to handle the mainline games.
Yeah, sure, they absolutely could, but do you really think that that's gonna make much of a difference? Even if they were to outsource it to somebody like Square Enix or something, for example, you really think that they're not gonna have people breathing down those developers' necks? Obviously, it would never happen with Square Enix. That was a terrible example, but Square Enix is one of my favorite RPG developers, so I kind of had to talk about that. But in reality, it wouldn't make much of a difference at all because Game Freak or the Pokemon Company would still have a very looming presence over that developer's room. Anybody that has decent knowledge on Generation 4 could look at the remakes and tell that there was a lot that was withheld from these remakes for some reason to make them good. And it's very weird that no matter how vocal we are about it, they will literally never talk about these games. So in reality, we'll never know what happened with Ilka in the remakes, but we do know that they weren't really great remakes. And see, the thing is, I can't comfortably sit here and blame Ilka for anything that happened with that. From what I have seen, I think that Ilka's a solid set of developers. They've developed some games from my past. They're currently working on a huge One Piece game, and it looks pretty damn good. However, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good you are at anything. You can only be so good at that thing with a gun held to your head and a bomb strapped to your chest, with a timer set specifically to stop when you finish that thing. Like I said, I can't prove anything that was going on during development. I don't work with Ilka, I don't work with Game Freak, I don't work with the Pokemon Company, so I could just be talking out of my ass. All I do know is that the games were half-baked, and they made a lot of money, and there's nothing stopping them from doing that with the next set of remakes. Now, I'm sure there's at least one or two of you that are like, okay, what about the off chance that they don't actually outsource the games? What if they actually develop it in-house? It was just that very specific situation. Well, I hate to inform you, buddy, but that's also extremely worrisome. The next set of bad news that we should probably pay attention to is simply the fact that it is now clear as day that they have two separate development teams at Game Freak. There is no way in hell anybody's going to ever convince me that they, at the same time, while getting Pokemon Legends ready to release, that the same team was also working on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which is coming out at the end of this year. If that is the same one team that's been working on all of the games that we've seen in the last couple of years, then Godspeed. I hope they're getting paid in fine wine every single day, every single hour, because that is some godlike work. But no, that is virtually impossible. So here's my guess. They do have two separate development teams working on games at all times. So why is that a problem, you ask? Well, look at it this way. They've split the main team into two teams, A team and B team. A team is releasing a game right now, B team is working on their game. B team just released their game, now A team is able to work on their game a little bit. And that cycle just continues. This simply means two things. One, they will always have rushed games coming out pretty much every year. This is very evident. We've seen it with pretty much every Pokemon game that's come out on the Switch so far. And B, we will never actually have the full heads at Game Freak tackling one game. I'm sure all of you already know the saying by now. Two heads are always better than one when tackling a situation or a project. In this situation, it's always like two heads are always working on two separate projects at all times, meaning that they've timed it up perfectly so that when one is working on one, the other one had just finished one, and vice versa. Since this has obviously become a big-time money-making strategy for the Pokemon Company and Game Freak, again, there's no reason for them to stop utilizing this method. So, even if they were to make it in-house, they would probably just have B team work on the remakes while A team was working on some other project. And based on previous endeavors, they would probably only have about maybe 1 to 2 years max, which definitely isn't a lot of time for a big-name AAA title. So I guess the point is, even if it were to go back to Game Freak themselves, the situation wouldn't change very much at all. So in reality, I guess there's simply really no winning that situation. Outsourced or not, they're getting the game out as fast as possible. It don't matter much who's making it. Now the final thing that concerns me is the fact that we don't really have any kind of guaranteed safety net with Generation 5. Now, what I mean by that is, it's a very real possibility that we won't have a Pokemon Legends to look forward to with Pokemon Black and White. Now hear me out for a second. A couple of months ago, there was a room that was data mined or found in the files or whatever of Pokemon Legends Arceus. When they discovered this room, they were able to move around and look around and things like that. Now, we've already looked in depth into this room, and we've already discovered that this room has an uncanny resemblance to the room that you start off in Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. Now, we already talked about all of my thoughts as to why that room could possibly be there. However, one of those reasons ended up standing out the most, especially in this situation right now. I am now completely under the impression that Pokemon Legends was actively supposed to be the Gen 4 remakes at first. What I believe right now is that they stopped developing it as the remakes because they needed time to play around with this new engine and make new mechanics work within this engine. When you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Imagine them trying to compact all of what we have in Pokemon Legends into the Gen 4 remakes exactly as we knew them. It wouldn't work. Things would be too compact, it would be way too tight. They wouldn't have time to develop things in a reimagined way like that. So, it would make sense if they came up with a different idea entirely. They scrapped what it was supposed to be and turned it into something new and completely fresh. And obviously, since Legends is based on 4th gen, they couldn't just scrap the Gen 4 remakes, so they decided to outsource that so that the A team or the B team, whatever was working on this at the time, could actually have time to focus on this title instead of the remakes. So in turn, I guess what I'm trying to say is, we got extremely lucky with Pokemon Legends. So in turn, what I'm also saying is that there's no guarantee that Pokemon Legends will become its own series or anything like that. And so, again in turn, we could end up getting the Gen 5 remakes. They could be as bare bones and possibly even worse than the Gen 4 remakes, and then that's just completely it for Gen 5's revisit. We get nothing else out of that, and we just move on to the next gen a couple of months later. Now, I'm sure somebody's just like, bro, you need to relax. I know we've taken L's with Pokemon before, but how could they not give us another Pokemon Legends, especially with how successful it was? But that's just it right there. Look at what I just said about Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Those also sold extremely well. At the end of the day, it's more than evident that it doesn't matter what the game actually contains for them. If it made them money, if they can make it faster, they will do it. They have taken this avenue already, they will continue to do so. Think of all the games in their past that were well received, and we haven't gotten anything like it ever again. I feel bad that I say it all the time, and I really do hate to think this way, but if they were actually worried about the quality of the games and actually listening to what we want in these games instead of lining their pockets, the series would have been a lot better by now and much farther along. As a Pokemon fan, I've come to terms with the fact that nothing is guaranteed with this series. We could get some godlike golden lights and some absolute dog crap within months of each other now, and that's just the reality that we live in. These people are forced to work behind closed, hefty-ass doors because they're not supposed to take criticisms from anybody else other than the top dogs. And unfortunately, the top dogs aren't worried about how the games look or how the games feel or play or whatever. They're worried about how the game will work the fastest. Oh man, I should probably stop talking about this because I have become a very negative Nancy throughout this discussion here, so we're just gonna go ahead and move past this. Anyway, the long and short of it is, I want the series to progress in a proper way. I really do, but if we're gonna keep doing these revisits, it would be detrimental for them to continue getting progressively worse. I mean, what's the point in making these crappy $60 remakes when it would be more beneficial for us to just go back and play the originals? For free, mind you. Wink wink. All it really does is continue to sully the memories that these games originally gave us, and that kills me to know that they would gladly stomp on our childhoods just to get to our wallets. It's very frustrating. Also, I don't know about you guys, but personally, with Generation 5, this feels like the last set of remakes that we can get before it starts to get weird, you know? I mean, could you imagine Pokemon X and Y remakes? That sounds so cursed. Like, unless they actually plan to make that game, like, better, bro, like, it just sounds weird, but whatever. That's a whole different discussion. Anyhow, personally, I would prefer if they were to just work on DLC for the mainline games, or sequels for the mainline games, or whatever. Anything that's not Generation 5 anytime soon. On one hand, it is probably extremely ridiculous to worry about something like Gen 5 remakes only a couple of months after Gen 4 remakes, but I was also worried about Generation 9 almost days before they put out the fact that we're getting Generation 9 this year, so I don't think I'm that crazy. I don't know, I guess after just growing up a lot, too soon has become very much a thing for me, and I'm worried that we'll get Gen 5 too soon, but whatever. This is Pokemon, we could go night and day on that, and we have, but I'm not gonna do it right now. Oh, dude, my soup is done, oh, wow. Okay, my soup is hot, and, you know, I'm tired from so much talking. Hey, can you do me a favor, can you blow on the soup for me? Hey, bro, blow easy, oh, man. You blew out all my soup, but I guess the mic was in there, so, you know, don't burn your hand or anything, but while it's there, why don't you go ahead and turn it on and tell me what you guys think about the possibility of getting Gen 5 remakes. Do you think it would be too soon to get it within the next year or two? Do you think it wouldn't be soon enough? Do you have any doubts that it would be better or worse than Gen 4 remakes? How do you feel comparing those? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I'm always down there with you guys. But with that, I'm gonna go ahead and skedaddle the hell on out of here. I would like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this if you haven't already. But with that, I'm Went. Thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor, taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!